Ah yes, Pikmin, one of Nintendo's newer franchises, only having 3 games and 1 spin-off, being originally released on the GameCube, a week after the GameCube came out. These sale numbers are kind of making sense on why they're so low. Before the GameCube's launch, Nintendo showed off a tech demo where 128 Marios ran around the screen, each performing an independent action. This demo, called Super Mario 128, showed off the GameCube's ability to have over 100 objects on screen at once to flex their hardware on the technically inferior PlayStation 2. Nintendo looked at this technical showcase and thought about how to make it into a game. They then settled on a game based on Adam and Eve, having 2 humans develop and multiply alone. They then scrapped the idea because it was stupid, and they saw Miyamoto playing in a garden once, so Pikmin! So the story of this game is that Olimar is traveling through space in his spaceship called the SS Dolphin. And while he's driving, he gets hit by this asteroid, the only thing in the sky, and starts crashing down to the planet nearby. Olimar somehow doesn't die from this, and wakes up on the planet's surface. He finds out he has 30 days to collect 30 pieces of the SS Dolphin before his life support runs out, and his lungs explode. On his way to find a piece of the dolphin, he finds a machine-like thing that he names an onion. I have no idea what onions Olimar has been eating, but they aren't normal onions. Anyway, the onion sprouts a seed, and after waiting a bit, Olimar plucks it and finds a creature. This creature, according to Olimar, looks like a specific brand of Pick carrots, so he dubs them Pikmin, which he then uses to help him fix the ship. All of the pieces on the ground apparently haven't broken, and his engine seems to be right next to the ship. Very lucky, very lucky. Now all you need to do is collect the rest of the ship parts in 29 days remaining. Good luck! The gameplay in Pikmin is apparently very complex, and Nintendo had multiple paragraphs of text to explain it, though it does have that lovable Olimar charm. But the controls on the Wii versions are this. Control stick on the nunchuck to move, A to throw and plug Pikmin, tap repeatedly to autoplug, B to whistle, C to dismiss, Z to recenter the camera behind Olimar, left and right to change the zoom. Press up on the D-pad to change the camera elevation, and press down to group, or as I like to call it, swarm onto your victims! Anyway, the main goal, as I said before, was to grab all 29 ship parts, but how do you do that, you may ask? Well, you throw Pikmin at it, and they drag it back to your ship. To get the Pikmin, you must defeat the enemies, and allow the Pikmin to take the enemy back to the onion. The onion will sprout Pikmin. The amount of Pikmin is usually dependent on how many Pikmin the enemy takes to carry, or how hard it was to defeat. If you leave the Pikmin for a while, unplugged, or feed them this yellow stuff called nectar, they will grow to flowers. In the process, leaf to bud to flower. Nectar insta-grows them. You may ask what happens if you lose all your Pikmin. First of all, you're a terrible person. Secondly, the game forces you to leave the planet and go to the next day. The next day, 1 Pikmin of each type will be sprouted, and you have to gather up your numbers again. Talking of types, there are 3 different types of Pikmin in this game. Red, which are immune to fire and do 1.5 times more damage than the other types of Pikmin, making them the damage dealers of the group. Yellow, which are the second type you get, which in all honesty feel kinda useless in this game. They can hold bomb rocks and get thrown higher than the other types of Pikmin, because Olimar says they look lighter. I don't know how this and this look different in weight, but according to Olimar, they do. Anyway, since that's the only thing they specialize in, the puzzles they are a part of are usually super basic, as in either bomb rockable wall in the way, or there's a part in a very high place. They were part of this super cool puzzle though. So there are these things called candy pop buds, where you throw one type of Pikmin in and another comes out that is the same colour as the bud. So for this puzzle you go onto a ledge with yellows and throw them into this beach area, and then throw them up onto this part here, so they can drag onto this little beach area, and then throw the yellow ones into the blue candy pop bud, and then allow the blue Pikmin to transport the part back to your ship, as there is water in the way and only blue Pikmin have the ability to go underwater and swim. A move that I didn't mention is Olimar's Punch. Though it looks weak, it can help in taking down bigger foes that you barely don't have enough Pikmin to defeat. This game is real difficult at some points. Some of the game's mechanics feel just actively against you and make you lose Pikmin, like the Pikmin randomly tripping. What is this, Brawl? You may have noticed that this place looks a lot like Earth. That's because it is. It's not as well shown as in future games, but this planet is confirmed to be Earth, where the human race is extinct. Why do games like taking place in post-apocalyptic worlds is kind of getting weird. Okay, so the bosses in Pikmin 1, I think they're really unbalanced. For example, the 3 Snagrets in the Forest of Hope. This boss will most likely be the first one the player comes across, and there's 3 of them, in an area where they can just chomp on all your Pikmin. Some, nay, most casual players would just give up then and there, and it did make me freak out on the first time I saw it. It's also horribly hard to get to this area because of this dumb ledge. Anyway, let's go through all the bosses. The 3 burrowing Snagrets. These bosses are pretty difficult. This could be the first boss the player faces, and since it's the first Pikmin game, it's gonna be kinda difficult. The enemy design is pretty cool. In future games, more specifically Pikmin 3, they have one small leg, which is odd, but cool in my opinion. The gameplay design is just throw Pikmin at it, not anything that interesting in my opinion. In future games you can aim for its head to avoid Pikmin death, but in this game it's just throw Pikmin behind. The Armored Cannon Beetle is a boss that you fight twice, once in the Forest of Hope and again in the Distant Spring. Same boss both times, but in the Forest of Hope the boss doesn't have a ship part in them because it's next to them. So if you're smart you can just take the part without killing the boss. But the one in the Distant Spring has the part inside them. To beat this boss is pretty easy. The boss inhales to shoot out a Pikmin killing rock. While the boss inhales, throw a Pikmin in the hole above their mouth, which causes the armored wings to come off, exposing the soft inside that the Pikmin can attack. Plus if you do it well enough, the boss doesn't even get to attack. Very nice boss design, but it's not too hard once you find the weakness, and the weakness is kind of obvious. The Puffstool is one of my favourite bosses. This boss is found near the Forest Navel. When you reach them, it seems pretty easy, but after a while, the enemy will release spores, hypnotizing the Pikmin so they're against you and will attack you. So the strategy is to avoid the spores while trying to flip over the boss. The design is pretty cool. I like the antennas being the eyes, plus it has a new design for the Pikmin that look pretty creepy. The beady longlegs is probably the second hardest required boss. They can be found in the Forest Navel. You are not going to be springing back from this fight without a giant loss in Pikmin. So why is this boss so hard? Because you go into the area and the boss just drops on you from the sky. Which if they land on your Pikmin, they instantly die. The beady longlegs will stomp around on their beady long legs. So they climb up and get to the middle where they slowly damage it. But after a while, it'll just shake the Pikmin off and stomp on them. Maybe this boss isn't too hard, but in my opinion, it's super difficult, especially for your first time. The Smoky Prog is an optional boss. You'll find it in the Distant Spring in a giant egg on any day before day 15. First time players will break the egg thinking, what is this? Is this a cool thing? Is there a treasure in here? And then this boss will spawn. They go to your base and try and disturb you by killing all the Pikmin, just by existing. How do you kill this, you may wonder? You don't. Well, you can't kill a loss in Pikmin. I wouldn't even break the egg if I were you. They don't even have a ship part for you to get, so they're not even worth fighting. If you fight with nature, nature will murder you. The Emperor Bulblax. The final boss is actually scarily difficult. So this boss is in the area called the Final Trial. And I'm going to explain this area because it's actually really cool. So you spawn here, grab all 3 types of Pikmin, behind you is 3 candy pop buds, so if you need to have more of one type and less of another, you can transfer them here. Anyway, first bring your blues to the middle, where this bridge is, and make them build it, as well as the bridge behind the bombable wall. Meanwhile, bring some yellows to the right side and throw them onto this small path and up onto this ledge to grab these bomb rocks. Then transport them down back to the base by throwing them and hoping they don't explode. And then go down to the bombable wall, assuming the bridge is done, and blow up the wall. Once that's all done, grab your reds, throw them across this vibrant, and lead them to push this box, and then you're ready for the final boss. Which is... I hate fighting this boss. The Emperor Bulblax. I haven't mentioned this until now, but most enemies have a Pikmin kill limit on them, so they can only kill a certain amount of Pikmin with one attack. This guy has no such limiter. If they kill 100 with one attack, all of them are dead. They have so much health, and the only place you can attack them is their face, because their back is protected and he jumps on any Pikmin at his feet. Plus he heals between days, and if you don't attack him. The optimal strategy I have found for this is grab a load of red and yellows, throw yellows into his mouth and stun him, and attack him with the red ones. Repeat this until he's dead. You will still have to sacrifice a load of Pikmin, but it's more efficient than other methods. If you're doing a no Pikmin death run though, this isn't the method for you. Challenge mode! I don't like this mode. It might be fun to go for high score, but not for me. So in this bonus mode, the goal is to get as many Pikmin sprouts as you can. There's no reward for playing this mode, it's purely high score based. Since all the maps are the same as the main mode, I could see it being useful for exploring a new area without any risks to your save file. But the enemy locations are different, so it's not that useful, but it's a nice bonus. So Pikmin 1, it has a lot of problems that are fixed in future games. It's my second favourite game in the series. The difficulty of the bosses are a fun challenge, the Pikmin types are fun and varied as well as being useful in different situations, and it has that feeling of survival, at least the first time you play. But the random tripping, Pikmin AA, and other small things that bring it down for me. I give it 90 out of 100 Pikmin. Well, this is the end card. I would first of all like to thank my friend Gonzo for helping out with a few changes in this video, as well as Pirate Kong from Designing for suggesting a few edits in the script and making it sound a lot better. Thanks guys. Their stuff is going to be linked in the description if you want to go check that out. PK out.